Hello, it's nice to see you again today. I contacted you because I want to talk about sexuality education and gender equality education in Sweden. Would you introduce yourself to the audience today, please?
Oh, sure. Hello, nice to be back with you. My name is Inti Chavez Perez, and I'm a sex educator who lives in Sweden and works mainly in the north part of Europe. I've written a book, Respect. It's now in Korean. I'm really happy to be here to answer your questions.
I have your book and I really like it.
How happy that makes me.
I really like you say, if you think this is like too much, put it down and you can come back later. You say that like very first, right? So I really like it. I think people have to have that attitude. If that's too much for you, it's okay. Whatever reason, your religion or your moral, everything is too much, okay. You can come back later. But people don't have that attitude. If they think it's too much, oh, that's sin, that's too much, you're going to hell, you have a problem. That kind of attitudes are like very, very common.
I would say that sexuality is like a journey through your life. You will have different phases when it will be very important with your sexuality, or it will not be so important. And some periods, things will be very specific, like what you want. And I would say that is, especially when you're young, you will have very specific ideas of like how your love life should be, who you should be, and how sex should be. But then as you get older, for most people, their sexuality starts to broaden a bit. And so maybe what feels like too much one time in your life, later in your life seems like really interesting and it really gets to you. And that is when that text and that conversation is supposed to happen, because before that is premature.
Yes. You have read the questions I sent you, right?
I did.
Okay, so yeah. I think you know the situation in South Korea. We have like people make the law register in the in the law system, so people can have 15 hours of sex education in school, but in reality, it's not really happening. It's only like one hour or two is the maximum. It's not really making people think about their sexuality or gender. Or it's only like violence prevention education. Only that. So I wanted to ask what is the situation of sex education in Sweden?
Sweden has the longest tradition in the world of having compulsory sex education in schools. We've had that for almost 70 years now. And we've had it because we've seen it as part of a fight against poverty, because we used to have lots of unwanted children in Sweden, and that was a problem. And we also seen it as a fight against STDs, so diseases. But lately, there's been a movement to kind of find what would sex education be today? What can we do with sex education for it to be more relevant for teenagers? I would say I'm part of that movement. There are lots of NGOs that are part of this movement, teachers, and so on. What we have to do is that we have to make sex education relevant, because it's not about like the state telling you, the teenager, how you're supposed to live your life, and like you have to use a condom. It's very, very important. But it actually is really important. But for that information to be useful, the teenager must be part of the conversation. And like the initiative has to, in the end, become part of the teenager, because if the teenager does not want or does not understand why, for example, health is important, doesn't understand why consent is important, well, then that will fail. That will not happen. It will just be not fancy words that a teacher says. But back to Korea, I'm really interested because you said that you do have this in law. However, it is not practiced in practice. And what I would wonder is, do the school staff have the training that they would need? Because sometimes that could be part of the problem, that there is actually a positive attitude from the school and it's the peers at school, but since they lack the training, it becomes really scary because you don't want to fail when you do anything as a human. It feels really scary.
Yes, that's one of the problems too. So teachers need training to do actually make a sex education in their class, but the country don't really provide training for the teacher, and then they are afraid of failing sex education in their class. And also we have some parents would yelling to them, why you teach sexuality and gender to my kids, and they will now want to have sex more early age and having many sexual partner, things like that. So it's kind of, like everything is like connected. So many problems going on. This country have not really value on the sexual education, and so they don't training the teachers, and the parents have not trained or educated when they are young. So all the stakeholders, maybe teachers, parents, children, and we don't really know what we really need and how we talk about this issue in a equal relationship.
And it sounds like if the teacher did have the knowledge, for example, that sex education does not actually make kids have more sex, that doesn't happen, it's already been checked by science.
Right.
Then they could maybe say that to the parents and try to be loyal with the student, because the teachers are actually there for the students, and sometimes being there for the student will give some confrontations with some teachers. And like especially like I think that could happen here in Sweden quite common if you have a teenager that is trans, for example, transgender. Maybe their family says, no, our child is not allowed to be transgender. But then the teacher must say, well, when this child is in school, it will be treated equally. And so if she says she's a she, then we will acknowledge her that way. Always putting the student's interest before the interest of the parents.
Yes. I think that's really important. And that's what we do, like NGO organizations and human rights and gender equality activists. That's what we do. And we make people come, and the like teachers and parents, they come to our organization and other organizations too. And we want to training parents and teachers, not only students. So that's what we want to do more, while the schools wouldn't do that.
That sounds really good. And change takes time.
Yes.
And knowledge takes time. Sometimes you have to say the same thing like 5 times before it really sticks to people. So it seems like you're on a good path.
And I was wondering, what would the relationship between sexual educator like you and the school system? So is it like a cooperative relationship, or like they hiring you like part-time, things like that? What would it looks like?
I would say that there's a really good cooperation and a really good goodwill from schools in Sweden, because the staff in schools really want to improve the sex education. It's been a part of the conversation in media for a long time. And the base of the work in any school will always be the staff of the school. That is the base. What you do in your teachings, how you react when some student says something, how do you react to that? That is also part of the base. And the cooperation between different staff in school, like maybe the biology teacher and the social science teacher have to speak to cooperate about sex education. So that is also part of the base. And that, but so that is super, super important. But beyond that, there is also the possibility to have, for example, guests at schools. And it's quite common, I would say, that Swedish schools would invite NGOs or would invite a writer like me to meet students. And the good thing about that is that the students get a lot of different perspectives on sexuality. So it empowers them in their own thinking and in their own exploration about how do they want to live their lives and what values do they themselves find to be important.
I think that's really good approaching the student. Let the student know there is many different perspectives, so they can hear from authors and other scientists and activists, things like that. So there's not only one way or one answer, so they can hear lots of things and they decide what they like to do, what they think about themselves. I think that's really good approach. In South Korea, people are really afraid of their children getting much information. They don't want to give the information. That's problem.
And what is the fear? What do they think will happen?
Well, having many sex, having sex during the young age, and like that kind of things are very, very big fear. And some people still wondering if they know about LGBTQ and there will be LGBTQ. Also, don't teach my children about LGBTQ, so you make my kids gay, things like that, or HIV, AIDS, things like that.
Yeah, and maybe your child actually will have sex. Like maybe your teenager will have sex, even though you say that it's not allowed. Maybe they will do that behind your back. Maybe they already have a love relationship that they themselves feel is really, really important to them and that they see a big future in, and they want to invest in it. And they invest emotionally and they invest sexually. And maybe it's happening right now. I would be afraid that as a parent or as an adult, if you too heavily close the door, that the teenager will not come and speak with you about things that are important to them. And when the moment comes when the teenager is in a bad situation, yes, and really needs advice and really needs the view of an adult who has longer life experience, then maybe they will not come, yes, to you because you have already closed the door. So I would take a minute to think about that as if I was a parent who felt that way.
Yeah, I agree. I said that a lot to parents. If you don't talk to your children about anything about sex, and they will not able to talk with you when they really need. So that's problem. So you really want to make the relationship equal and let them talk to you freely. That's
Yeah.
make them safe, right?
Yeah.
South Korea, especially, not really let the women, female students, do not allow them to know about menstruation or masturbation, things like that. So they not even know about their body and what's going on, what is going to happen. And same thing applies to not only body, but about the gender and sexuality, who they want to love, what they want to do with their bodies and with their relationship, things like that. Can women learn more about their body, gender, sexuality in Sweden?
Yes, and I would say it's very, very important because the things you don't know about your body, well, they become taboo, right? They become like this dark secret, and you think that you are the only one, or you think that there's something bad and shameful with your body, which is actually not the fact. So this kind of silence, it's really, really hurtful for everybody. And I would say that I also want boys to learn about menstruation, and I really like put an effort into teaching boys about menstruation, because like menstruation is like really, really cool. Like, I mean, you and I would never live, like we wouldn't live, be alive right now if menstruation didn't exist. So menstruation is a fact. I think it's such a shame that Facebook, for example, they if you put up a photo of menstruation blood, they will censor it. People act like menstruation is like the biggest, wildest thing ever, but it's very natural. When somebody has their first menstruation, it's quite a cool thing, because that is a sign that your body is going to change a lot. You're stepping into a new chapter in your life. It's not on only your body that's going to be developing, but also your brain is going to be developing a lot in now. So it's a good thing, and I think it's a thing that should be celebrated. I also think we should be talking about the economics of menstruation, because menstruation, if you don't want to soil your clothes, that means that we have the costs of tampons and other mechanisms to get rid of menstruation blood. And it's a good question whether that cost should be put on the girls, if that cost should be put on the parents, or if that cost maybe should be part of actually school budget. Maybe schools should provide that kind of services, because we want school to be equally for everybody. We want also poor income children to feel part of school. And maybe if you one day go to school and you have a menstruation and you didn't prepare for that, maybe that girl will go home and miss that whole day with all those classes. So what we should be thinking, what responsibility does school have to make the school available for girls that are menstruating?
Yes.
So there's like lots of things to talk about here. Right. But I really think that we should, when we talk about menstruation, we should really try to push this positive agenda, because it's not strange at all. It's just how the body functions, and menstruation blood is not dirty because it comes from the womb, and it's a microbe-free environment. It's really, really clean. We really have to fight that negative perceptions on menstruation. And I think that the only reason we have a bad perception of menstruation is because we live in a patriarchal system. Yes. Where man is good, woman is bad, and since only women have menstruation, that is bad. But I think that if we did not live in a patriarchal world, I really, really, really think that menstruation would be seen as a very positive thing.
Even like a higher human being.
Yeah.
I think people would say that's like a spiritual thing and make you birth is life giving, right? Things like that. So I think that would be really has a higher value, even if it was not patriarchal society. I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, it would be part of would be part of any religion, because it has to do with also with pain, but also with life, and that living in pain and giving life. That is kind of, isn't that like the cycle of life? I mean, I'm Christian. I live in a Christian world. We don't in Christianity we talk a lot about life. Life is holy. Mm-hmm. And in Easter we eat eggs because egg is a symbol of life. Mm-hmm. Actually, the egg is menstruation. Eggs from hens are menstruation, but we don't talk about menstruation in that way. So that is that's the limit. That life is holy, but we can't talk about menstruation.
Also, you talk about sex education for men separately. You also write a book about sex education for boys. So why did you think sex education for men was necessary? And why would you emphasize it like separately?
Well, first of all, I want to be really, really clear that for me, like the base of sex education should be together. Should be boys, should be girls, should intergender, whatever you want. Should be together. We have to meet each other. We have to talk with each other so we can understand each other, because we are living in a diverse society. No, we're not living in a society only of men. Right. So men, we have to hear what women and intergender, transgender people have to say. I mean, because we live in the same society, and relationships has to do with the other. So we have to really listen to each other.
I agree.
So that's the base. Mm-hmm. But also, and here comes my book, also there is the need to talk about specific things. Mm-hmm. And I do think that boys have special needs that have to be addressed. And those needs are both physiological and cultural. So if I talk about the physiological part, the body, at least in Sweden, the health sector in Sweden is very dominated by women, and they tend to not have that good knowledge about male anatomy. So that is a big part that I want to spread. And I also talk with health professionals about how the penis works and so on. I think that is very important knowledge. The other part is the culture, right? So we live in a culture that says that boys have to be in a certain way, and that shapes relationships, and that shapes sexuality I would say in a bad way. Mm-hmm. I would say that many boys are missing out on how cool sexuality can be when it's not about like performing. It's not a theater. Like sex is not a theater. Well, you can make it to a theater, and that will be quite boring. You will like be watching yourself having sex from an outside position, and then you will say like, oh yeah, I give myself 10 points for this. This was really successful play, right? But then you miss the whole connection. Then you miss the spontaneity of what could have happened, and the depth of sexuality, both like meeting yourself and meeting your sex partner. So I want to give boys a chance to see sexuality in another way. And if we compare boys with girls, at least in Sweden, we see that girls and boys, they get their information from different parts of society. Girls tend to get their information from books, from school, from health services. boys, they don't tend to go to health services. It's very, very uncommon that they do that. They tend to talk with friends or with people on internet forums to ask for advice. So boys get lower quality information, lower quality messages. I also think that parents, they talk more with their girls. They don't talk with the boys in the same way. So there's a gap there, and I want to fill that. So that's why I did this book for boys and guys and men.
Yes. Same thing happened here in South Korea. Female students read books about feminism, pure feminism, and sex education, things like that. But boys, like male students, don't read the book, go to online, talk to friends, and learn about sex from the porno. So bad quality.
It is really bad quality. And the thing is, like, when some guys, when they talk about sex with other guy friends, like nothing of that is really serious. It's just like a way of talking. It is a way to, I don't know, like explore, like put up a facade, and you're like the tough guy, and your friend is also the tough guy, and so then you're talking and you're joking. And I mean, it can be really fun. I do understand that an afternoon goes like this quickly when you're talking that way with your friend. But there's also like this depth to sexuality and relationships that I do think that boys miss out on. And I also see that many, I would say, heterosexual boys make themselves dependent on a female partner, enable themselves to explore the deep parts of their humanity. They are not able to do that themselves because they feel that it's taboo, it's shameful for them to do that. And so since they can't connect with those qualities in themselves, they become 100% dependent on a woman who is the one who's going to be helping him address his feelings, helping him address his problems, etc. I mean, it does make you dependent. I don't think it's good. And I also think it could be bad for the relationship if it ends up that your partner is your mother. Can be. So I really want guys to explore this for themselves.
In South Korea, there is some sex educators. They are male, so we know male body, and we have to sex educate to male. So they say things like, moms don't know about their son. I know. So you don't know at all. I should talk to them. You have to learn from me. Things like that approach. I think that's really wrong, bad messaging. I think moms should feel like they can talk to their son and make good conversation, and that's like good conversation and having equal relationship is good sex education, right? So I mean, approaching that kind of, you don't know because you are female, I know the best because I'm a male teacher, that's really bad messaging.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I do agree with you. And I would say that, I mean, if there's someone who does a good job in teaching boys about respect, about gender equality, stuff like that, it's the moms. Like, what kind of world would we have without the education that moms give to their sons?
Right. That's really important. So in the UNESCO's Comprehensive Sexuality Education, CSE, really emphasized making the equal relationship. So from their 8 core value, the first thing is relationship, right? So what method do you use to educate about establishing equal relationships?
I talk about consent a lot. Consent is really, really important in my messaging. I always start off with consent in a sexual or romantic scenario? How do you tell somebody what you want, like what you really want, and how do you listen to the other person about what that person wants? And this communication that you're having, it's like a tango. It's like your two forces, and you give and take, and you don't really know where this is going to lead you, but it probably is going to lead you to a really good destination if you allow yourselves both to be honest and open, and to like really have this true understanding of each other. But then when we've learned about that, then it gets kind of clear that consent is actually in all relationships, whether it's a family relationship or it's a relationship in school. Consent is at the core of everything. Like, how do you choose when you're with your friend, you're going to play a video game? How do you choose with which video game you're going to be playing together? How do you know when your friend is tired and doesn't want to play this video game anymore and wants you to do something else? That is also consent. So that's my focus, consent. And this book, in English, it's called like oh no, actually in Spain. I'm sorry, in Spanish. I'm sorry, I'm gonna hear in Spanish. So I'm actually I was born in Spain. Oh. So it's respect sex with consent, sexo consentido, the sex with consent. That is the core message. You have another title in Korea. It's really, really nice there. But I think that when you read the book, I mean, you see that it's really much about consent, right?
Yes. So consent is making good conversation, right? Equal conversation.
Yeah, consent is how did you know that the other person wants what you are doing? So how do I know that my partner wants me to kiss them, for example? And how do I know if, like, does this person want just a kiss on the lips or a kiss with tongue? When does my partner want a breathing pause, right? And stop kissing with tongue and breathe? How do I know all these things? Part of it is communication with words, but and that is, I would say, the easiest part. And then there's this other part that is communication with body language.
Yes.
And I try to teach about that in my book, Respect, because I say, I've talked about yes signals and no signals. I don't know how you would say that in Korean, how it's been translated, but what kind of signals does a person use to say yes to the sexual encounter you're having right now? And what is the signals of a no? And I would say that the absence of signals saying yes is no. So you always have to have these positive signals. And that is consent, and it's created in the moment all the time. And we can suddenly have like an abrupt, like it can suddenly be cut off.
Yes.
And how do you react then? You can stop. You can also ask. I just understood that there's something going on. Do you want us to stop, or do you want us to do something else? So that is the idea of consent.
I agree to that. It can be a language, talking, like asking, listening, share opinions, and also read their body language and the moment of stopping, things like that. So everything can be called consent. So,
and can I say one thing?
Yes.
And that the interesting part of consent is that I try to teach like as a universal thing, but it's also very individual how people communicate with each other, and it takes time to learn how the other person, how your partner is communicating. But when you've learned that, like people who have had their same partner for many years, when the partner comes home from work, they can directly see that, oh, my partner wants to have sex tonight. Yeah. You just learn that.
So it can be different individually or situation or day by day, or you can learn from the people, the person. So it can be when you meet a person, this is like first day, and that you having consent from that person can be different from, like you just say, like long time relationship consent, right? So
Yeah.
everybody's consent is different by different relationship.
Yeah, and I would say that the less you know a person, the more clear
Yes.
that person has to be. And we do have a problem with boys who are always looking for clues that, oh, this person smiled, it means they want to have sex. Oh, this person laughed, it means they want to have sex.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and that is a problem. So you have to really, so consent is about being also true, like really truly listening to what the other person is actually saying, not only what you are projecting onto them, but actually really seeing them. And the reason I started to talk so much about consent is because in Sweden, when I started in schools, they teach teenagers that you can't have sex with somebody if they say no. When they say no, you stop. And I completely wanted to change that, because I want to say, if you want to have sex with somebody, they have to say yes.
Yes.
So when did they say yes? How did they say yes? That is the important part.
Right. I really, really agree to that. These days, people also say this, like, how can I ask the person, like, can I hold your hand? Can I hug you? Can I kiss you? Everything, making everything question is really boring and make that person like sick of me, things like that. So making questions is really bad, not really is not good for making good mood, right? So people like and also really worry about, what if this person, like let's say female, what if this woman sue me as a sexual offender? So we should make it like contract, their signature, things like that. Is that a consent? That kind of questions really, really a lot.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, and I would say that is like, maybe if you haven't had that discussion before, maybe if you haven't been thinking about these things before, then it becomes like a huge thing, like, oh my God, before I touch somebody, they have to actually agree about that. And then you're like, it's your brain is exploding and you're wondering, how will I ever manage to do this? But it is possible. And like, don't be afraid to make a fool of yourself. Like, having sex is like really silly. so you can definitely ask somebody if you can kiss them. And even if they think, if they think it's too silly, well, then sex is going to be much too silly for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually do. I do also do some flirting training. I do have some flirting training in my book, and I don't know if I think this one is not part of the book, but sometimes when you have a question, you can also take away the question mark, and then it's not a question anymore. So instead of saying, can I kiss you? You can actually say, you know what? You know what I want to do right now? I really want to kiss you. Like, you don't have to say the question mark. And so it does have a different taste to it, but it means you're saying the same thing. And it's a bit cooler.
Yes. It can be, sounds cooler. So in South Korea, awareness of the human rights of women and LGBTQIA people in general is growing more and more. But at the same time, many people strongly express their opposition to human rights, women, and sexual minorities. So I was wondering if there are any anti-feminist homophobia, transphobia in Sweden, and also what is the Sweden government and the school react to them, how they respond to the such people.
So Europe is having a big trouble right now because we have this kind of racist, anti-feminist, anti-LGBT movement going really strongly. And I do believe that we could have a racist government in Sweden like next year. And it's been very, like, Sweden has been transformed in a way that's kind of scary. Like Muslim women, when they go out on the streets, people are yelling to them. And like, since these movements have gone so strong, it also has given many people feeling that they have the right to treat other people badly. We also have a really big pushback against trans teenagers. A lot of people right now saying that if you are a teenager, then you can't know that you're trans. So there are people who really want to force trans teenagers to go through a puberty in the wrong direction, which they actually don't want to go through, and which can be irreversible. And we do have medication to stop puberty, like pushed it forward a few years. And then there are people who don't want trans teenagers to have that kind of medical treatment. So yeah, we do have those kind of problems. And I would say that they are a big threat, but also like a strategy can sometimes be to not even care about them. Like, because I have been in like Russian state media, because the Russian state really wants to push anti anything messages in Europe. So I've been featured in Russian state media. I've been featured in like American racist media. People are really want to attack and say nasty things. But at the end of the day, like when I meet teenagers, when I do the thing that I do, they do think that what I do is really great. And they do see that I have deep knowledge in sexuality and relationships, and they want to listen, and they think it's fun. Sometimes you just have to try to not listen to these people, because they are actually trolls. They actually just want to suck your energy out of you. Yes. And just do your positive thing, because when you do your positive thing, that's when you're showing that what would be possible, what kind of society could we live in. You show that, and that's how you push forward with your agenda.
Encouraging also is made me really sad too in Sweden having a situation like that. I was like hoping that Sweden has this ideal country we want to go and everybody happy. There's no anti-feminism or homophobia, things like that. But still racism going on. Lots of things going on in Europe too about these refugees and racism, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm very open with that. I'm very pro refugee intake in Europe, because I think that in the future there will be lots of more refugees, because we have really messed up the climate of our planet.
Yes, climate.
And many places will be much harder to live in the future. And whenever we can see this in history, whenever there's a lack of water, for example, that starts wars. Like whenever the natural resources shrink, it starts wars. And when there are wars, then people have to flee from those places. I do think that the future, I hope I'm wrong. God, please, I hope I'm wrong. But I do think that the future is a future which much, much more refugees in the world. And we have to start learning how does the world manage all these people? I mean, we're talking about millions of people. How do we give them a new home? How do they get into the education systems of the world? How do they get into the employment systems of the world, like the labor systems of the world? We have to be starting to think about that, construct systems for that, because when the tide comes, when places start to be flooded and the deserts start to spread, that would be too late. We had to think about that before. So that's why, since I talk about this very openly, racists don't like me. Yeah, they don't like me. It doesn't help that I'm immigrant also. Like, I wasn't born in Sweden. And I'm really happy that I changed country, because moving to a richer country gave me the opportunity to live a better life. And I do think that me being in Sweden improves Sweden, because I come with new ideas, and lots of people want to go through training with me and so on. So I'm very positive about that kind of thing, and that makes people angry, and that's okay.
Yeah. I like that too. I like to make people angry to me as well, because you say really. I think you say really good things, like in terms of human rights and gender equality. It should make people angry. And also in South Korea, many people, like racist, anti-feminist, homophobia, transphobia people hate me so much. People like swearing me, jihad, go to hell, things like that every day. So many. Yeah. And in the end of the day, I think that we have to also think that maybe these persons are not so unlike us. Like, maybe they are quite like us. Maybe, the racist person that writes to me, maybe they are afraid because they feel that when they go to a bar, nobody wants to hang out with them. Maybe they are afraid that they try to be tough, but they know that they are soft on the inside. So they are afraid that one day it will be exposed that they are a lie. I do think that there is, like, often when somebody is so angry, I think that there is some kind of explanation to it. Are there men in Sweden who claim men are more difficult to live than women, and men have become a gender subject to gender discrimination, things like that? That's really huge in South Korea, because feminism goes up, like this anti-feminism male, they claiming that males having more harder life than female. That's what things going on here. And I would say this is like a natural part of the process. So think that you have a scale, okay? So there is a scale of equality, and right now it's not equal at all, because we have men who have more power, and then we actually have women that own less. They actually make less money, and so on. And we also have specific health issues with women. In Sweden, we have burnout. We have several women's diseases that are quite big in our society. So if you use states politics to, for example, try to make a more equal pay in the workspace, well, then you will have a shift in the scale that will go like this, okay? And so this scale is shifting. It's actually not equal yet. We haven't reached equality yet, but we have had a change. Yes. And the change is that this
it was this scale, it was so heavy. Well, it's kind of losing a bit, right? It's going to in this transaction. And that is what some men are feeling and are deeply afraid of. Because if we ever reach a situation when we are equal, well, that means that as a man, you will not get things for free anymore. You will not get a raise without any issue, for no reason. You will not become the boss. If there's a female who is actually better than you at your job, well, she will become the boss. Yes. When you, I don't know, when you clean your apartment, no, like your mom won't say, "Oh, you're such a fantastic man who knows how to clean your apartment." Because nobody says that to a woman, like, "Oh my God, do you know how to clean your stuff?" You will lose a lot of free stuff. But here's the thing: being an oppressor demands of you to either look away from reality, like it requires you to not see what is happening. So you have to shut your eyes. You also have to shut your emotions, because you cannot feel empathy with the oppressed. The thing with feelings is that they are all connected. You can't just shut down empathy for somebody else and still have empathy with yourself. You maybe have self-pity, but you will have real empathy with yourself. And so what happens is that being an oppressor makes you go around with pain, with the pain of being shut. You are shut to the world. And I really genuinely believe that when we reach gender equality, many men will feel a release of stress. I think many men will feel like they maybe don't notice it, that they are actually tense in their muscles, in their bodies, but they will notice it when they relax. They will notice that there has been tension, there has been pain, and the men will be free from that. And I think it's a beautiful future.
I would agree. I don't have to be really strong, or I don't have to make a lot of money. That kind of man box, you make me really stressful. So you let go and be yourself is really, it would really good feeling and make people free.
Yeah.
How would you make them think about it? Like feel that relieved, no tension about the mailbox, or not stress from the masculinity. How would you do that in your class?
That is really, really hard. What I try to do is I try to make them trust me. When I go into a classroom, many boys will be reluctant in the start. They will be sitting very far away like this. They will have their arms like this. Yeah. They will be looking away, like everything to show that they are not participating. I'm sorry.
Yes.
And why? Because they already know everything. They already know everything about sex. And it's very important for them to show that they already, I know everything. And I've fucked so many people. And whenever I need something, I look it up on the internet. And that's why I'm like king of the world. And I try to win their confidence by trying to speak about things that are important to them, trying really to answer their questions, and to try to like make this thing be about them. And when I actually think that I'm better and better at making this happen. And when they feel that trust, that is actually taking one step toward what we want, because that they are then letting go a bit of their armor. They have this body armor. They're letting go of it a little bit. And I think that's the way to do it. It's just by building relationship can do that. I don't think a piece of information in itself can make this happen. Like, information is really good, but it's still, unfortunately, just theoretical. If you want this to affect them, it's all about the building relationship.
So my last question.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of gender equality and human rights education should we provide to create a society, everyone, like teenagers, women, LGBTQI, people with a disability, and the elderly, and so on? What we should do, make people, everybody recognize as a sexual subject, and everyone's life has a sexual rights, can be respected, and they could enjoy their sexual life. So what kind of education should we provide, and how can we approach what would be a good educational method?
So we have to work with policy, right? We have to, sex education has to be compulsory. That is part one. And it has to be compulsory in many different school forms. At least in Sweden, if you have a intellectual disability, you don't go to the common school, you go to special school. So it's the same there. It has to be part of the compulsory school. In Sweden, we also have adult schools, and adult schools, it's adult education. It's mainly for immigrants who come to Sweden. They have to learn Swedish. They have to learn how to, Swedish jobs and so on. Unfortunately, sex education is not compulsory in adult education. I really want that. I want that to happen. Also, start really early from kindergarten. From kindergarten, that's when you have to learn about things like body and like really, really basic consent. So how you have the right to integrity of your body, and others have the right of the integrity of their body. Like, so really, really. Oh, and how are babies made? That's should always be part of the curriculum. But anyway. So it's doing this with policy, and then when you have this policy that every teacher at any school, part of school, knows that, we have to do this, then comes the training. For example, what does it mean to have sex education with people who have an intellectual disability? What does that mean? Because it does mean special things. You have to do some special things in your pedagogy to make this work. And this is also a group that is especially attacked sexually, like sexual violence. If you have a intellectual or a physical disability, there's a higher risk of being prey of sexual predators. So that's first step one, policy, and that's what we've been doing in Sweden. And step two is training, and that is what we are doing now in Sweden. Right now, we've just made it a part of teacher school. So when teachers go to university, finally, it's taking a lot of years. Finally, they are going to be taught about sex education as part of their student curriculum. So, and when that happens, then we will have new teachers that have had this education. But then in the schools, we have all these old teachers, and they haven't had this. So then we have to have programs for them in some kind of way. And I'm gonna try to, as a freelancer, be part of that. We'll see. Like, being strategic is the way, because otherwise you will burn out. Like, if you is watching this are going to save this whole planet by doing just by your activism when you meet people, it's going to be really tough. You have to use the state in order to make changes. And now that we're actually talking about disabilities, I just want to make a bit like commercial break. Like, hey, if there's any editorial in Korea that works with disabilities, I have this book that is really, it's the one book in Sweden talks about sexuality and disability. There is no other. I will show it like this. It's called Sexboken. So if you happen to work in that kind of special editorial or whatever, try to contact me. It's very easy to understand, easy read, and it also talks about what do you do when you have physical disabilities, because having these physical disabilities, it does give you need some special knowledge about how to solve those limits. How do you have a good sexual life? It's possible. I've been interviewing people with disabilities. It is possible to solve those kind of things and to have a positive sex life.
So that book hasn't translated in Korean yet?
No.
They would do that. This company would do that. I really like to have that in Korea too. I mean, that's really going to be helpful if we have in Korean. I really like to see that happen.
Me too. Yeah, so that's why I had this short commercial break.
Do you have any last things that want to share? Do you have any last things that want to share?
I'm just really happy to be here with you and really happy to see. I mean, we are part of a global movement. There are lots of people in the world who want to make this happen. Feminism used to be a women's movement, a women's rights movement. And that historically it's because, I mean, men have not been so much part of it, but now we see more and more men wanting to be part of change, positive change. And that is really, really good, because when both women and men want to transform society, I think it's going to happen much quicker. It's going to be much better. So we just have to keep doing this and know that we exist. Like, you should know that we in Sweden exist. We in Sweden should know that you exist, because that will give us strength to know that we're not alone. Yeah, we're going to make a better world for sure.
Thank you so much. Let's take a picture. Put the next book that we haven't done Korean yet. Yes.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.